Gestalt psychology. I was a psychologist in a jail alcohol program, and I met a fellow there working, Fred Lowe, about this tall. Fred Lowe, and about this wide. He's an Olympic weightlifter. His best effort, 7th in the world in his weight class. Can you imagine 7th in anything in the world? And one day he comes into work. I said, "What'd you do to yourself, Fred?" And he says, I was doing some deep squats and I pulled a muscle a little bit. And I said, "I guess that's the end of your training." He said, "Oh, no. You have to teach the body how you want it to heal, but you respect the injury. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is your friend. You work through it. If you mask it, you might well do more injury than not." And that's what Epicurus is taught. Life is filled with adversity, people. You know, adversity never knocks at the door, just shows up. "Hi, I'm back." Adversity comes in 2 flavors. It comes as obstacles or opportunities. What's the difference? You are. Your deepest fear is not that you're inadequate. Your deepest fear is that you're powerful beyond measure. It's the light and not the darkness that frightens you. You can go over, you can go under. You can succeed or you can fail. Everybody has the same choice. And sometimes going over requires suffering, it requires pain, it requires loss. But at the other end of it, we have come through. We've learned something that you can't learn without going through. Now, I hope you don't have to go through it. In fact, when we get to the experience machine on Thursday, what if you never had to have pain again? I mean, trust me, it is not user-friendly when a wall falls over on your head. It's not user-friendly when you fall off a 2-story building. It was sand. It was lucky. It just knocked me silly. Almost drowning is really not user-friendly. Blood poisoning is not user-friendly. Getting hit by a van is not user-friendly. I vote for the experience machine. I'm kind of done with it, frankly, people. I mean, it's been a while. It's been 203, what is it, 16? It's been 13 years now. Who knows? Life is full of adversity. And Epicurus says we would do better in our search for the good life, for true happiness, if we acknowledge the fact that adversity is part of living. And oftentimes we have to go through it if we're going to come to the end of happiness. Everybody with me on that? So he's different. Most of us don't. I don't want to go through it. I don't wish it on anybody. But it's going to happen. And if you're prepared for adversity, you make it through to the other side, you might well say, "I'm a pretty happy person." Now, I started the lecture saying Epicurus got it wrong. How did Epicurus get it wrong? We'll get to that in a minute. The nature of the good life is based on decisions. You can make right and wrong decisions. By the way, sometimes you learn more when you make a wrong decision than you make a right decision. Value theory deals with the nature of the good life. What makes a human life go well? What in life is worth pursuing? And is happiness the ultimate good? The nature of the good life is going to require 3 things that we'll study this week. Hedonism is pleasure, nothing more than pleasure. That's why we started. How many of you want more pleasure rather than less? There are physical pleasures and intellectual pleasures to hedonism. Everybody knows the 10 minutes of pleasure. So tonight, 10 minutes of pleasure. Okay? And then tomorrow you end up saving someone's life. And a year from now we all get together for a reunion. I said, "Remember that 10 minutes of pleasure a year ago? Remember it?" I guess, sort of. I said, "You remember when you saved that person's life?" Just like yesterday. In the realm of hedonism and value theory, there's nothing wrong with physical pleasure. It can be taken to an extreme. But we need to recognize there's also intellectual pleasures as well. You work hard for an A and you get an A in here. Do you feel good or bad about your effort? You work hard for promotion. You get the promotion. Do you feel good or bad about the work you put in for it? Those are intellectual pleasures. They have nothing to do with physical. But for the hedonist, there's nothing wrong with either one of them. Turns out Epicurus is a hedonist. He says pleasure is a good thing, but arriving at the end of pleasure for him often involves pain, and for the other hedonists it doesn't. There's also desire satisfaction theories built upon the idea that our lives go well to the extent that our desires are satisfied. I'm assuming you're here because you want to be here and no one's made you to be here. There's a desire to be in school, to get an education, to hopefully produce enough income, or in sports, whatever it is, so that life feels good. And then objective theories are built upon the idea that how one life goes depends on more than just one's mental state. So it's not just what you think about it, but there can be some satisfaction at the other end of that too. Surprise! Oh, I didn't see that coming. And you're really grateful that that came along. Like cancer. When you go through it, you say, well, how can you be grateful about that? Well, you've never been through it, so you have no idea what I'm talking about. Survival is a very interesting reward. Brian Boitano was a Olympic skater, male figure skater, and he had testicular cancer, stage 4, and he overcame it. And he went back into a national tournament, and one of the reporters, sports reporters, went up and said, "Do you think you have a chance at winning?" And he says, "It doesn't matter if I win. The fact that I get out on the ice makes me a winner, because I shouldn't be here." So that goes beyond the mental state. That's something, there's a sense of intrinsic value, that your life is valuable in spite of everything you go through. So let's focus on Epicurus. Now, both here and these are the notes. You'll see the notes are in red and blue, and here they're in red and black. What I've done here, because philosophy is about thinking through things, people. When you get to graduate school or even the 4-year university, don't take everything for granted. It's okay to challenge. I know in high school, you are taught not to challenge. Don't say a lot. Your opinion is not really... Here it is. Especially in philosophy, it is. So what Epicurus says about death is in red or burgundy, and I'm challenging some of his assumptions because, frankly, he got them wrong. When you look at the notes that I give you, it's basically the same argument. This is more points, but you'll see the same thing, counter-arguments. So my counter-arcs are blue, Epicurus is in burgundy. What you need to know for your quiz is Epicurus will be on your quiz, not me. I'm just helping you think through these things. Okay? Everybody follow that? And we'll do that throughout the semester. Every philosopher that we study is not 100% right. It's okay to examine those things and challenge them. And that's part of what class is about. It's called critical thinking. Not that you can't think, but to sharpen the way you look at things. Say, wow, I never thought of that before. That's why we're in class, to kind of get us to be able to see things in a different light. So, Epicurus begins with this. Now let me make it larger for you. Something can benefit or harm an individual only if the individual has the capacity for physical sensation. That's what we normally associate pain with. I know people who've lost a spouse and they live the rest of their lives with a broken heart. There's no physical pain. I have a friend of mine who's about 34, 35. His wife just died spontaneously. She was about 33. I ran into him about 3 or 4 months after she had passed away. I said, "How you doing?" He says, "I still walk into her closet and I hug her clothes and I smell her." And he just starts to cry. I know older people lose a spouse, 50 years, and a year later they die of a broken heart. Epicurus is wrong. There's more to life than just feelings as sensations. In fact, without the heart, I don't know what we have for a measure of life and value. We lose an animal that we love. I've been at stillborns. A friend of mine lost her child while she was still pregnant, and they had to deliver the child. And Michelle sat there for about an hour and a half with the stillborn baby, just trying to make its peace. I was at another bedside of a lady who had a child, 18 months old, osteopetrosis. That means the bones get old before the child does. You know, infants will push up, that's part of learning how to crawl, and he would break his bones. And he passed away at 18 months. I was at a 7-year-old who drowned in Lake Michigan, an 18-year-old who avoided a deer and ran into a tree and she died, and a variety of other people. and it breaks the heart. Epicurus doesn't deal with the heart. The reason he doesn't is he says this: the dead do not have the capacity for sensation, therefore death cannot harm the dead. If some future event will not harm us when it happens, then we should not fear it now, therefore we should not fear death. Well, he's right. Maybe we shouldn't fear death, but not because you can't feel anything when you die, because he's never died and come back to tell us. People who have near-death experiences and come back have very interesting stories to tell us, and we don't have the mechanism to validate it, whether it's true or not. I have a friend who was a model back in her day, walked across the street, a van hit her, really hurt her bad. Her eyeball, her face needed to be restructured, and when they took her in the emergency room, she was up in the corner of the room. She watched the whole operation. She was done. Doctor came in to check on her after she came out of anesthesia. She said, you know, you shouldn't tell those dirty jokes. Talking about. She says, well, I was sitting up there listening to the whole thing. Oh, no, you were under anesthesia. She says, you want to know the jokes you told? I can tell them to you. And doctors hear this over and over and over again. And it's hard. You can't disprove it, and you can't prove it. People, there's a faculty on this campus, surgery, died on the table. Got them all ready for the morgue. You know, it's about 30, 45 minutes later. Got them all ready and sat right up. Nurses freaked out, came right, I'm going to touch you for a minute, came right over and touched him and said, wow, you're warm. You shouldn't be warm. He said, well, do you remember anything? He says, yeah, I saw all my family that went, you know, they died before me. He mentioned his mother, he mentioned his cousin. But Epicurus is sure that when you're dead, there's no sensation, and so why bother to fear death? Why do you fear death anyway? My dad, before he died, he'd look at me. He was 85 when I moved down here. I came down here to take care of my mom. Passed in 2001. My father asked if I'd move down here and take care of him. I came down in 2004, December 24th. I had Christmas Eve dinner in Denny's. It was tomato soup and I think a grilled cheese sandwich. That's all they had left. It was cool. He would regularly say to me, he says, you think there's anything after this? And I said, how would I know? I don't know. Why don't you do the best with what you have, and if you get something after this, you get a twofer. You get life here and you get life there. And if there's nothing after that, I would still do the best you can here, because this is all you have then. Why do we fear death, people? I mean, we cover it up. When I got run over by the van, when I finally came to, the state police officer was putting a white sheet away in the trunk of his vehicle. You know why they have the white sheet, right? We cover it up. We don't want to look at death like somehow death. I remember when little Krista died, the 7-year-old, my little boy, Corey Michael. You might meet Corey sometime. He was 7 years old. I took him to the funeral, took him right up to the casket with the other 3 boys, and I said, this is what it looks like when you're dead. I don't want you to be afraid of death. I mean, death is a part of life, people. Some people go, how do you do that to a little kid? Don't do it to your kids if you don't agree with it, but I don't want my kids to be afraid of it. Because we don't know much about it other than you're not here. That we know. You know? Anybody home? No one, never, no. But we don't know what's next. We think we do. I mean, we have religious theories, we have philosophies, but why can you or do you be afraid about something you don't know very much about or you've never experienced before? Say again?
That's why.
That's why. The unknown. How many of you were afraid coming into this class? You don't know me.